after she was kidnapped more than a week ago.
Investigators still not identifying any suspects or persons of interest in this case, even after the deadline passed for the alleged $6 million ransom. And now sources tell Fox that local law enforcement may have delayed their cooperation with federal agents when they arrived on the scene to help with the search. Joining us now is former NYPD senior hostage negotiator Greg Giovanni. Greg, thank you so much for joining us. So here is the Fox News Digital reporting. It reads federal agents arrived in Tucson last week to an icy welcome amid a harrowing.
We begin tonight with an urgent development in a case that has captured national attention. Nancy Guthrie, the prominent television journalist, has issued a new public plea for help in locating her mother, Nancy Guthrie, who was abducted 1 week ago. The situation remains critical as investigators work around the clock to bring Nancy Guthrie home safely. According to officials close to the investigation, authorities have not yet identified any suspects in this troubling case. The lack of concrete leads has intensified concerns among family members and the broader community. Sources have informed Fox News that local law enforcement in Tucson may have initially delayed cooperation with federal agents who arrived on scene to assist with the search operation. This coordination issue has raised questions about how effectively resources are being deployed during these crucial early days. The friction between local and federal investigators became apparent when federal agents arrived in Tucson to provide support. Multiple sources indicate there may have been reluctance from local authorities to immediately integrate federal resources into the investigation. Days reportedly passed before federal agents were fully brought into the operational fold. This delay has sparked concern among experts who emphasize that time is the most valuable asset in any abduction case. Retired senior hostage negotiators and law enforcement veterans are weighing in on what this jurisdictional friction might mean for the investigation's success. While interagency cooperation challenges are not unprecedented in major cases, the stakes here could not be higher. Every hour that passes without coordination represents a missed opportunity to gather evidence, interview witnesses, and pursue leads that might bring Nancy Guthrie home. Former law enforcement officials familiar with these types of operations suggest that while initial tensions may have existed, there are signs the agencies are now working together more effectively. The hope is that any early friction has been resolved and that a unified command structure is now in place. However, the critical question remains: how much damage was done during those first crucial hours and days when cooperation may have been less than optimal? The importance of the initial 48 hours in an abduction investigation cannot be overstated. This window represents the period when physical evidence is freshest, witness memories are sharpest, and the trail left by perpetrators has not yet gone cold. Crime scene processing during this window is absolutely essential. Investigators need immediate access to gather forensic evidence, document the scene, and begin building a timeline of events. Any delay in accessing the crime scene or coordinating investigative efforts can have cascading negative effects throughout the entire case. Drawing on decades of experience in hostage negotiation, former law enforcement professionals are offering insights into the communication dynamics at play in this case. The Guthrie family has acknowledged receiving communication from those responsible for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Nancy Guthrie herself used carefully chosen words in her statement, saying the family has received a message and that they understand. This language suggests ongoing communication between the family and the abductors, which experts view as a potentially positive sign. The method of communication in modern abduction cases has evolved significantly with technology. Experts believe the contact in this case is likely occurring through email, possibly using encrypted or difficult-to-trace digital channels. The family has established a dedicated email address for communication, but sources indicate this address may be routed through services that make tracing extremely difficult. This presents investigators with a significant technical challenge. While they cannot easily track the origin of these communications, the email channel does provide an avenue for potential dialogue. From a negotiation standpoint, this communication channel represents both an opportunity and a limitation. Experienced negotiators emphasize that establishing dialogue with abductors is often the most critical tool available. While detectives focus on the investigative side, working to identify and apprehend the perpetrators, negotiators pursue a parallel track focused on communication and de-escalation. The email channel, despite its limitations, may be the only current means of maintaining contact with those holding Nancy Guthrie. The investigative approach requires balancing two sometimes competing priorities. Law enforcement wants to identify, locate, and apprehend the individuals responsible. Simultaneously, negotiators want to maintain open lines of communication to ensure the victim's safety and work toward a peaceful resolution. The FBI, with its extensive experience in kidnapping cases, likely has negotiators actively using whatever communication channels exist to maintain dialogue with the abductors. Adding to the puzzle are details that seem inconsistent with an otherwise carefully planned operation. Former FBI investigator Dan Bongino has raised important questions about certain aspects of the case that do not align with the apparent sophistication shown in other areas. The perpetrators demonstrated impressive operational security in many respects. They managed to avoid leaving DNA evidence at the scene. No tire prints or vehicle tracks were recovered that could help identify them. They successfully disabled or avoided cell phone tracking that might reveal their location or movements. However, there is one detail that seems curiously out of place. Reports indicate the abductors left behind Nancy Guthrie's medication. For individuals who were meticulous enough to avoid leaving physical evidence and sophisticated enough to evade digital tracking, forgetting critical medication seems like an odd oversight. This inconsistency has led some investigators to consider possibilities outside conventional assumptions. When standard investigative approaches are not yielding results, experienced investigators know they must be willing to examine less obvious scenarios. This apparent contradiction raises important questions about the nature of this abduction. Were the perpetrators as professional as the lack of physical evidence suggests? Or does the medication detail indicate something different about their planning and capabilities? In cases where the obvious explanations do not fit all the facts, investigators must remain open to alternative theories. Whatever the answers, they clearly are not being found through traditional investigative pathways, at least not yet. Despite these challenges, some law enforcement experts express cautious optimism that apprehending the abductors is ultimately a matter of time. Modern investigative technology continues to advance, providing tools that were unavailable even a few years ago. However, this technological progress cuts both ways. While investigators have access to more sophisticated tools, criminals also have access to encryption, anonymization services, and other technologies that make them harder to locate and identify. The email communication that appears to be the primary contact method in this case exemplifies this challenge. Untraceable email services have existed for years, but they have become increasingly sophisticated and difficult for law enforcement to penetrate. In the past, investigators had more success tracking digital communications. Today, with the proliferation of encryption and privacy tools, the task has become significantly more complex. The geographic scope of the search adds another layer of difficulty. Investigators must consider the possibility that Nancy Guthrie is no longer in the immediate area where she was taken. She could be anywhere in the state, or she could have been transported across state lines. Even more concerning is the possibility that she may have been taken across the border into Mexico or even beyond. The proximity of Tucson to the Mexican border makes this a very real consideration that investigators cannot ignore. Authorities have already expanded their search area, acknowledging that the initial focus may have been too geographically limited. This expansion reflects the reality that as time passes, the potential area where a victim might be located grows exponentially. Without solid leads on the abductors' identities or their direction of travel, investigators must cast a wider net, which inevitably stretches resources and complicates the search operation. The involvement of the FBI brings significant resources to bear on this case. The Bureau has access to investigative capabilities and technologies that go far beyond what local law enforcement can deploy. Some of these capabilities are classified or sensitive and will not be disclosed publicly even after the case is resolved. The FBI maintains specialized units for kidnapping investigations, including behavioral analysts, technical specialists, and experienced negotiators who have handled similar cases across the country and around the world. These federal resources include advanced forensic capabilities, access to national and international databases, relationships with foreign law enforcement agencies, and specialized technical tools for tracking and communication analysis. While the public may not see or understand all the investigative work happening behind the scenes, it is important to recognize that significant effort and expertise are being applied to this case. The main question that continues to hang over this investigation is simply, where is Nancy Guthrie? Despite the resources deployed, the expertise brought to bear, and the public attention focused on this case, that fundamental question remains unanswered. Each day that passes without resolution increases the urgency and the concern for her safety and well-being. For the Guthrie family, the waiting is undoubtedly agonizing. Savannah Guthrie's public plea for assistance reflects both the desperation of a daughter searching for her mother and a strategic effort to keep public attention focused on the case. Public awareness can sometimes generate tips and leads that prove critical. Someone may have seen something, noticed unusual activity, or possess information they do not yet realize is important. As this case continues to unfold, the cooperation between local and federal authorities will remain critical. Whatever initial challenges existed, sustained collaboration and information sharing are essential to bringing this investigation to a successful conclusion. The investigative community is united in the goal of safely recovering Nancy Guthrie and bringing those responsible to justice. We will continue to follow this developing story and bring you updates as new information becomes available. The coming days will be critical in determining whether investigators can develop the breakthrough lead this case desperately needs.